everybody. What's going on? Austin Turner with Two Footed Solutions here. We have a fantastic guest today for the Hear the Unheard Digital Summit expert interview. Super excited about this one. Most of you guys know me and my background. We'll get into it here in a second. But I've got Les Spellman on the Zoom call with us today. I don't want to dive into Les's background. He has got a fantastic repertoire and a pretty cool training and performance academy here in San Diego, California. I'm going to let him dive into that first. But Les, Master of Speed, tell the viewers a little bit about who you are, where you're located, what you offer to the market here in San Diego and around the country.
Yeah, for sure. And thanks for having me on. This is a awesome opportunity. So I essentially been doing this 8.5 years, and I started off when I was running track, and I really just couldn't figure out how to get faster. Like, I got stronger, I got more flexible, I worked on my technique, and I was not getting faster. And I really dived into the what, the why, and the how for speed training post-college, and I started studying biomechanics. Gave it a couple years working with kids, and I actually got hired by the U.S. Olympic Committee to teach speed for the Olympic teams. And this is right before the Rio de Janeiro Olympics in 2016. So I started teaching speed with a couple Olympic teams, worked my way up, got some of the fastest players in the world. Our team became one of the fastest teams in the world also. And, extremely successful run through the Olympics, and then did a World Cup after. So after that, I got into the NFL space, and I started training guys for the NFL Combine. I started that in about 2016, 2017. And I had a small group 2016, small group 2017. 2018, I had 18 players for the NFL Combine. And then 2019, I had 28 guys for the NFL Combine. And then this past year, we had over 30. So just gradually grown my business from Olympic to NFL, and then now working back to Olympic teams, professional consulting for professional teams, and pretty much everything is based around data for us and collecting the right data, analyzing that data, and then delivering the product based on the data that we capture. So right now we work with about 6 professional teams, a couple NCAA teams, and NFL players in the off season. So yeah, I mean, there's a million ways to train anybody for speed. So we're out of the business of teaching the technical aspects as our primary business. We're more into the capturing the data on athletes. And once we capture that data, we make informed decisions based on what the programming should be. And that's where we build our technical models. So for example, a player will come in, we'll test him, we'll figure out, okay, he's low on his force capabilities, he's high on his velocity capabilities, his ratio of horizontal force is too high or too low, and then we'll make a decision based on programming that'll set the tone for the next couple weeks. Then within that program, we develop a technical proficiency for what he needs to do for his sport, and then transfer that athlete back to their team or anything like that, and then they execute. So that's like the snapshot of what our business does, but we can go into some more details if you need to.
Yeah, I love that. And that's really the root of this conversation, and the root of what I'm getting out of Spellman Performance is the data and the facts speak for itself. We're talking about, with the Hear the Unheard Digital Summit, we're talking about various ways to get sports reopened, get kids back into school, really putting the focus and emphasis on the physical development, the nutritional development, and the stunting of both physical and nutritional development during this COVID-19 shutdown. The lack of resources, both from a training perspective, the lack of resources from a structure, from a team perspective, as well as the lack of nutritional options when you're left to your own devices at home. That is a potential disaster in my eyes when it comes to stunting the next generation of athletes. Before we start talking about the individual athletes, before we start diving into the data, the facts, as well as how you are using it to enhance world-class athletes, both NFL, Olympians, soccer, you encompass a number of different sports at Spellman Performance. I want to talk a little bit about the state guidelines where you're at. You and I had a good chat on field availability and what that looks like now that COVID-19 is shutting down, and how difficult it is for you to continue on servicing your clients and your customers. How are the state guidelines here in California impacting the business, impacting you, and impacting your athletes?
Yeah, it's super tough because field availability is very limited right now, especially because we can't rent from schools. And then on all the parks, you can't have anyone over the age of 17 training. And obviously, our NFL athletes are over 17. So luckily, NFL offseason ended today. So most of those players have left and gone back to their teams. So we're good on that front. But now we still have Olympic athletes that are over 17 that may not be able to train with us this next month, which is difficult. With the youth, it's been similar and tough because you can only have groups of 12. So we have a lot of athletes that can't fit in that group that we have of 12 athletes. So that's been tough. So yeah, it's a lot of uncertainty. We're hoping to find like a more permanent location and field space, but it's up in the air. It changes every 2 weeks. We resubmit another permit. It's never perfect. So hopefully over the next couple of weeks we'll find a more permanent home.
Love that. And I love that you're so proactive and still fighting and pushing. I know from the soccer side of the equation, most cities outside of San Diego are all but shut down. Player development, because there aren't field accessibility and because there are groups of X amount of numbers, and it all but are shut down, this player development. So it is so cool to hear you still pushing and still fighting. Parents, players out there listening to this, please know that you have a resource here in the San Diego market, someone who is fighting daily and weekly in order to remain out on the field and continue the development process. Now, just as a big picture, talk to me about the youth side of this equation. Has there been an uptick now that parents and players are at home and have so much free time? Have you seen an uptick in people coming to the Spelman Performance app or wanting to meet with you in person to go over their speed deficiencies?
It's been, I would say, yes, on the online side. We had 2,500 people on the online platform between the first 6 weeks. We had 60,000 video downloads within like 3 months. So like definitely. I think I lost you for a second. Can you hear me?
Yep, loud and clear. You're back.
But the in-person, it's tough because parents are unsure. They don't want to have their kids risking anything by training with other kids. So it's kind of up in the air. Like, I think once we get more consistent base, like we always have a ton of kids. I think now we just have to limit how many kids we have. So it's been a little bit of our fault about that, but we'll probably get it together once we find a location.
Love that. And it actually is perfect. It segues, perfectly into number 3, which is, what are you guys doing to support the player development during these difficult times? Obviously, it's a difficult times for all, you, the players, the parents, and everyone associated with the COVID-19 in general. What are you doing both at practice, at the fields? You created this app, and now we're making this app available, which is striking up some attention and getting views and downloads and the like. What are you doing? Give me a high-level overview of what you've done. Have you taken any safety precautions while on field in order to provide safety?
Yeah, first of all, I think what athletes are craving right now is a consistent schedule. I think when you're an athlete and you're training every day, okay, I got practice at 4, got a game this weekend. What's happened is that athletes have lost that. So you see a lot of athletes that are going through depression and things like that because they're not in their routine, they're not in their normal schedule. So what we've done from a virtual standpoint and in-person standpoint is try to provide a consistent schedule. And then while they're at our sessions, we've been really careful about social distancing. All the coaches wearing masks, kids wear gloves. at our camps. Like we just had a camp in Texas and a camp in Iowa. So just doing the best that we can to prevent it. But yeah, I mean it's a really difficult time. So I think the biggest thing that we can do is just give them a consistent schedule and then just be safe while we're in person.
Yeah, I love that. Consistency is key. Coming from my background in sports, your background in sports, in order to achieve that, kind of the highest level, to become an Olympian, it takes consistency over an extended period of time. It isn't going to happen overnight, especially, losing weight, which I'll talk into a little bit about my experience and why, what services you offer and provide are so valuable. Is because you do provide that routine. And the one thing that this quarantine, the lockdown, stay-at-home order, state guidelines have significantly impacted, especially for our youth, is the routine. Most kids are getting up at a specific time. They get ready for school. They go to school. They have, recesses, or they have athletic activities throughout the day. Then they have their set soccer schedule or whatever sports schedule to close out their afternoon. Once you break that, and now you have a sedentary lifestyle replaced. Have you seen anything with your clients in particular, or in the space in general, where athletic performance has dropped, injuries have risen? We'll touch a little bit on the mental health side of this, but what is your take on injury prevention once they get out of that sedentary lifestyle and back onto the field?
Yeah, I mean, and when they're training, they're exposing their tendons and ligaments to high levels of force and stress that they're not getting when they're sitting on the couch. So you see, it hasn't happened yet because there hasn't been a return to sports yet. But once athletes do return to sports, there is going to be issues with Achilles ruptures, tendon ruptures, soft tissue injuries, because their tendons, ligaments, and muscles haven't been stressed to that level and haven't been exposed to the forces that they're going to experience when they go back to their sport. So that is a major risk. So especially because athletes haven't been lifting, athletes haven't been running, and when athletes do get out, they're usually doing something light and jogging or walking. So part of that is trying to expose those athletes to those forces, those velocities, that level of stress that they're going to experience in a game or practice, so that there isn't an uptick in injuries. We haven't seen it yet. I mean, not with my population, at least, but it's definitely coming. It's like the NFL lockout in 2012 or 2013, whenever that was. When they came back, they had a higher Achilles injury rate than ever before because athletes weren't exposing their tendons to stress. So that's a huge thing coming back to sports. Hopefully teams will take that into consideration.
Yeah, I do remember that too, that lockout. There was a huge rise in Achilles and small little nagging injuries, things that you don't typically hear during a season were happening because of the inactivity. Talk to me a little bit about, well, I'll link the Spellman Performance app in the show notes. I'll dive more into that and how our viewers can access it. Are you doing anything in regards to, say, preventative injury stuff? Is there a gradual plan in place in the app for kids who are looking to, slowly return back to activity?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think all training is preventative. Everything you're doing is preventative. That's the point of training. And that, it's not always performance. Like, the reason why we do performance training is to increase the athlete's threshold for something, whether their threshold for velocity or maximal anaerobic speed, whatever. We're trying to increase a certain variable. So it's preventative before they go into a game, that they're not being exposed to that for the first time. If they're exposed to those things for the first time in a game, that's where injury happens. That's where, athletes are not conditioned, things like that. So our app includes a ton of prehab and preventative things within it. So activation, mobility, anything that's technical is in there in the app also, like technical drills, things like that. So yeah, I think our entire app is preventative. and it progresses athletes from week 1 through week 16 where we're at now.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And it's scalable from the sound of it. Obviously, you work with Olympians and NFL athletes. It sounds like it will also work for someone who's maybe just starting out, whether it be AYSO soccer or Pop Warner football, and then obviously scale with you as your athletic development improves.
Yeah, I mean, we built it for youth athletes, but then we had 60-something NFL and Olympic athletes hop on, and they're like, "Oh, this works for us too," because the
Okay.
basics are the basics. It's not really rocket science. Like, the drills are the drills. Like when we take athletes through the basics, it's actually harder for NFL athletes than the youth athletes because of their body mass. So it's actually more challenging the more advanced you are. So for a young kid starting out, it's very basic and it's very simple. And for a elite athlete, it's very basic, very simple, but there's an added, thing to it because it's the same volume as if you were 120 pounds. So it's scalable, and it's all athletes can use it.
Brilliant. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I'm super excited to check it out, and I think everyone here in this market should definitely check it out as well. I will be linking more on that. Talk a little about the nutrition side. I know Perform Nutrition app to go kind of complements the Spellman Performance app on the nutrition side. What have you seen, or what are you doing to combat the inaccessibility of food? Have you done any partners here in the San Diego market who are doing meal prep services that you want to shout out, or anything related to nutrition that you want to bring to light?
Yeah, I think there's a ton of meal prep agencies, but we try to get our athletes involved in their meal process. So once they get their plan from our nutrition partner, we try to get them to stick to it and stay consistent. For youth athletes, it's more of an issue of undereating, and then overeating the wrong things. So athletes that we have don't eat consistently. They don't eat enough. They don't eat frequently enough. So getting them to eat breakfast, step one. Getting them to eat frequently, like before and after workouts. The spacing, the timing, those types of things really matter. It's really detailed in terms of what the athlete's needs are. For example, if they're trying to maintain, gain, or lose weight. If they're trying to maintain weight, just when to eat, it tends to throw athletes off thinking they need to eat less, and really sometimes they need to eat more to maintain or even to drop weight just more frequently, and so they're burning consistently. So that's really outside of my lane, but my partner Chris handles all that.
Awesome. Yeah, that's also, once again, a huge part of this conversation. A lot of students are on school meals, school lunches, and the like, and now that school is not in session, they don't have the accessibility to food.
Right.
So having resources such as the Perform Nutrition app, is going to be huge. Like I said, I'll definitely link it in the show notes for any of those parents and athletes are out there interested. You and I touched on it a little bit about my journey, but when I stopped playing football, when I retired the first time in 2014, I actually ballooned up and I got to very unhealthy levels. Just a little insight, I was 280 pounds, almost 34% body fat when I went to the doctors on that fateful December 4th, 2014 day. And from that moment, it actually, the fitness industry became my life. I dove into the nutrition side first, and then I added in the physical side. And I got as low as 9.5% body fat when I stepped on stage for my first show, or what I was hoping to be my first show. So the proof is in the pudding. If someone like myself, who I got to unhealthy levels and then was able to right my own ship and get back in order, I couldn't even imagine how much better off I would have done if the blueprint was already there in front of me. So I'm super excited getting into the Perform Nutrition app. The Master of Speed is something that I just labeled you. I'm not sure if you've ever been called that before, if that's been trademarked. If so, I apologize. But talk to me a little bit about the speed training aspect. I know speed training is one area that I struggle with myself, and most of that is poor body mechanics. Years and years of poor foot striking, poor knee drive, poor height, you name it. My wife gives me a hard time quite a bit for my lack of technique, let's just say. When you're working with youth athletes all the way up to the Olympians and you're fine tuning their skills, talk to me a little about what that looks like.
Yeah,
The development process from square one to Olympian.
yeah. So I think speed is a lot more simple than what most people have been told. I think people think they know a ton, and I think that's what throws them off. Because when they're younger, they're told, "Hey, run on your toes, keep your arms at 90 degrees, drive your knees." They've been told all these things, so those are the things that are unconsciously going through their brain as they run. So what we do, number one, is we try to strip that away. So all the biases that create what their motto is, we try to strip that away. Because every single human that's ever lived has the same biomechanical and principles that everyone abides by. So, for example, we all have gravity, so we all fall at 9.8 meters per second back to the ground. Object in motion stays in motion unless a force is acted upon it, so which is a braking force. You know what I'm saying? So the most important one is that for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. So when you look at these principles, Newton's laws of motion, every single person abides by these rules. So what it comes down to is how we contact the ground and with what force we contact the ground, and then what direction is our foot traveling when it contacts the ground, which is going to teach us how to project forward. So when we're talking speed, we're talking how does the body project through space? How does it move forward? So we have propulsive and we have braking forces. More propulsive forces, less braking forces, the faster you run. So how do we minimize braking force and increase propulsive forces? So our entire program is built on creating more propulsion for an athlete. So contacting the ground in the right spot, not only contacting the ground, but contacting it with force, then contacting it with force in the right direction is going to create speed. So we have an entire model for how we do that. So we begin slow. We begin with walking drills. So we teach body mechanics. There's three things that matter here: posture, arm action, leg action. So your posture is what's going to control your trunk. It's going to control your hips and your shoulders. So teaching the postures first is the number one thing. Leg action is teaching, how the hips work. We want to be hip dominant runners, not knee dominant runners. So when you tell a kid run with, drive your knees up, it's the wrong thing. We never want to think knee. We never want to think distal, which means away from the center. We always want to think proximal. So hip, we're teaching the body how to work hip first, hip dominance. And then arm action is not exactly what people think, where they keep your L's or hold them at 90. Like I've heard everything. The arm is really a whip. You're actually swinging that arm as hard as you can backwards and opening that shoulder, which is going to create room for your rest of your body to create space and counterbalance your forward rotation so you don't fall over when you run. And then we build it from there. So that's the base. And then we build these positions into drills, and then we add power to those drills. And then, as the athlete gets better, we add speed. We add more speed, more speed, more speed. And it's a long process, but what we do is we take them, we profile every single athlete the same. So we look at how much force are they creating, how much maximal force, how much maximal velocity are they creating, which equals power. And then we figure out where do they reach that power, where do they reach those speeds, and then what can we do to improve it based on their sport. So for an example, if we have a running back has a different demand than a wide receiver. So a demand for a running back is a running back needs to get to top end speed as quickly as possible. So for example, we had Austin Eckler from the Chargers. He ran 21.6 miles per hour within 20 yards, which is good. That means he has a high acceleration rate and a high maximal velocity. Then we took another running back that was 18 miles per hour over 20 yards. So he has a very low acceleration rate. Even though he might have a high maximal velocity rate, he's not reaching that maximal velocity within the range that he would experience in the game. So this running back was cut from an NFL team, and he's trying to get back on a team. So what do you think coaches told him? Hey, you're slow. Well, when we tested him, he ran 22.5 miles per hour, so he's not slow. He just has a poor acceleration rate. So we figure out individually what each athlete needs and then work on those individual characteristics to progress that athlete to where they need to be. A wide receiver has a little bit different demand. They have a rangy speed. So a majority of routes are run at sub-maximal speeds, so which means less than 100%. So if they're running a post or anything like that, they're not running full like speed as if they were running a 40. They're running sub-maximal. So when they run that route, they don't need to be at full speed, but after they catch the ball, they need to be at full speed. So most wide receivers have a very good ability to be at top end speed later on, which is fine. And they usually have average or sometimes on the lower side of acceleration rate. So sometimes it's improving both of those characteristics, or sometimes it's letting it, just play itself out and seeing if they need any help to prevent injury. So every single person is individual, but everybody abides by the same rules, same laws of motion, and have the same demands. And getting athletes faster is the same process, but it differs in specificity for each athlete.
I love that. I love that. Everybody's an individual, but everybody has to follow the same plan. That's brilliant.
Yeah,
that makes it really easy for you as well, I imagine, when you have different athletes with different capabilities and skill sets, not only be able to, as my coach used to say, reduce it to the ridiculous, being able to keep it simple, being able to explain it in a palatable way, but also have it scalable to deal with the athlete in front of you. That's brilliant. I think that would be something as a parent, as a coach, as a somebody related to overseeing the athletic development of a program or something of the like. They need to pay attention to this, because there are definite gaps in the current athletic development regime. I know in my college we didn't have this type of micro focus on the individual aspects. They had the same type of feedback and results: walk your L, stand tall, drive your knees, all of the basic, typical cue points that you said were wrong were things that were force fed to me from a very young age. I'll never forget my high school speed training coach. I mean, I still walk your L's, walk your L's, walk your L's. It was like the rinse and repeat, the 2 to 3, days per week that he would come out there. And that type of, emphasis in speed training world that I'm used to is similar to what I would imagine the interviewers, the people watching this, the viewers here, are going to have as well. So knowing that there's an alternative out there, knowing that you have something that's better than, what the status quo is or what they're used to is something that's going to be of huge value. Talk to me a little bit about, what happens in your eyes moving forward should quarantine and stay at home persist, right? So we've already been on the youth, the kids, athletes have already been on their tails for, 5.5, 6 months with this first portion of it. I know they were able to go back a little bit, a couple weeks. However, if this stay at home, continues longer and we're not able to get a handle on the COVID-19 mess, what happens 6 months from now if the quarantine persists, when there's a year under these youth athletes' belts of being stagnant?
Yeah, I don't know. I can't really answer that because I don't know all the facts. I do see, like I just had the news thing, Los Angeles County breaks daily record for hospitalizations for fourth time. So I think right now we have a public health crisis. We have, there's a lot going on. So I think that needs to be the primary thing that people are worried about. I think if we had done the right things months ago, I don't think we would be facing the same issues that we're facing right now. So I think it's time to take control. If we have to take control and lose some of the freedoms that we've had, then so be it. But I think there still needs to be a development period for athletes. And the best thing about this is that American athletes they play too many games. They play way too many games. In soccer, lacrosse, basketball. When you go to European countries and other places, they spend more time on development than games. So in America, games have become a business and it's become a moneymaker. So that's kind of what's been in the forefront. So football players that I know play all fall and then play 7-on-7 all spring, and then they're back to football summer training. So they never get a break. So I think having athletes have a break and then spending this time on development is probably the best thing that we can do right now. I think it's the best characteristic that we have about this whole virus. It's something that's lacked in America, and if you look at American sports, our entire pathways for most sports are completely focused on gameplay and not very focused on athletic development. So that's kind of where I see the opportunity, is that athletes should focus on developing their athletic skills during this time, and they have no distractions. They have no reason not to. This is a time where they can lock in and focus on, increasing their speed and power, deceleration, things like that.
Which just so happens to work perfectly with your app and the nutrition app that come into play. There is no excuse if you don't have the resources, if you don't have the gym, or you don't have the routine that you're used to as a youth sports athlete, or the structure as playing in a team sport. There still are resources out there. There still are, ways for you to still improve and still develop, still grow in whatever sport you play, which is the beauty of it. It isn't just, NFL athlete for you. It isn't just a receiver or running back. It is, we're going to break down you. We're going to figure out what works and where you need to improve on based off of your current progression. And that's the beauty of what I see with your aspect. Talk to me about the mental. I know we touched on it very early. What have you seen? What have you heard? How are your players, your current clients, both youth and adult, how are they dealing with the COVID-19 quarantine, the lockdown, and everything in between?
Yeah, it's been tough, honestly, and it's been tough for everyone, coaches involved too. It's all over the board. Some see opportunity. Some of our NFL free agents do not have an opportunity because of it. So it kind of ranges. Our high school kids are devastated. Just finding out today that high school football is now moved to January, which hurts the recruiting window. So I think some athletes are devastated that we're seniors and or juniors. I got a couple kids that will not play their senior year of football because they're enrolling early into their college in January, so they're done. So I think it's all over the board, but it's one of those things where you can't control it. It's not something that's within our control. So what we can control is what we do on a daily basis, our habits, our day-to-day activities. And if you handle it that way, there's a massive opportunity right now. There's a massive gap in the market because 50% of people aren't going to do anything. 25 are just going to complain. And the 25 that really step up, you're going to see a new wave of athletes. We're seeing some right now, some of the fastest women's athletes in the world, because we've actually taken a 9-week block of time and developed speed for athletes that have never had that opportunity to work on it. We have a female athlete that runs 21.4 miles per hour. The world record average 10-meter split is 22.4 miles per hour. So within 1 mile per hour, the world's best times on grass, on a random day. So I think we're seeing some pretty amazing things happen. It's just you have to choose to look for those things.
Absolutely, and then work your tail off in order to achieve those things. That's the other portion of that. I'm on the entrepreneur side. I'm a big person on critical path to success, and critical path to success has a starting point and ending point. However, what people don't see are the little micro decisions that are done every single day in order to keep propelling you forward through that critical path to success to get to that finish line. And that finish line is different for everybody. Olympian is different than what my finish line or definition of success would be. And that's the beauty of it, is that so long as you're still pushing forward, so long as you still have that can-do attitude and determination to not be stagnant, even in a quarantine, global pandemic scenario, you still can make changes for your life and for yourself, better your current state.
Yeah, absolutely.
So before I let you go for the day, I want to do a couple different things here. First and foremost, I want to shout out Sarah Moore. Sarah Moore is a mutual colleague of ours, friend of ours. Sarah Moore Fitness, for those that would like to learn more about Sarah and her fitness skills. She's an incredible trainer, incredible coach here in the San Diego market. I'll definitely drop some information on her where you can find her out. And also I'll drop more information on both the Spellman Performance app as well as the Performance nutrition app as well for those parents and coaches and athletes looking to develop. Do you have anything else you want to add? I know this is a conversation specifically, talking about your expertness in physical player development as well as the nutrition side. Do you have anything you want to add to the conversation?
No, I mean, I think we covered a lot there. I think another underrated thing that we didn't touch on is sleep. I think athletes should be sleeping 60 hours a week minimum, and now they have no reason not to. It's the biggest performance enhancing drug that they could ever use. So I think that's a very underrated thing. And now there's no excuse. You're not waking up 5 a.m. for a workout. It's like sleep, get some sleep in. So yeah, I just wanted to say that.
Yeah, that's brilliant, man. That's so brilliant too. I'm a big advocate on sleep. Definitely don't sleep enough myself. However, it is one of those areas when it comes to recovery. Recovery via sleep is one area that people, don't put enough emphasis on. I didn't know that 60 hours was that magic number. I'm well short of that. But that's excellent. That's excellent. What do you recommend on that? Anything that you want to plug on effective sleep? Either resources that you use, what you do in order to maximize your sleep recovery.
I lost you for a second. Sleeping in a cool, dark room, so 65 to 69 degrees. Dark room, like no light at all. Keep the phone with like more than 6 feet away. Like put the phone in the other room if you can, and set one alarm but never hit snooze. Let's see what else. If you're not falling asleep within like 5 to 10 minutes of when you lie down, there's something going on. So like if so, you got to look at like, am I watching TV up until I go to sleep? If so, you gotta find a buffer. So you got to read or something that doesn't involve a screen, so that you give your eyes and your brain a rest. There's a million things, like drinking water before you go to sleep is a big one. But what I use this Whoop app. So it's a Whoop band and it's tied to an app. So it tells me my sleep performance every day, and I have all my professional athletes on it. All my professionals use it, and it reports right back to me. So I see everyone's data. I see how much you're sleeping, how much recovery they're getting, how much work they're doing when they're not with me. So I think that's the most underrated part of performance right now.
That's that app, or what you said, Swoop app?
It's Whoop, WHOOP. Whoop, yeah.
Awesome. I'll definitely have to learn a little bit more about that, and then I'll plug it in the show notes as well. That seems like a great training tool and accountability tool. I mean, your players being on that, and then you being able to track that progression, and then right the wrong in real time in the event that they do start deviating from the plan. That's legit.
Yeah.
All right, my friend. Once again, here at the Unheard Digital Summit expert interview, we had Les Spellman from the Spellman Performance. I'm going to link everything in the show notes. Les, hey, man, I appreciate your time. Great insight, great learning from you, and I look forward to sending anybody interested your way.
Awesome. Thanks, bro. Appreciate it.
All right. Have a great day.
Peace.
All right, everybody. This is Austin from Two Footed Solutions. Once again, I am the host of the Unheard Digital Summit. It's been a pleasure. Thank you guys very much for your time and for stopping in. A lot of great insight into the physical, nutritional, mental side of athletic development. Take a look at the show notes. I'm going to dive into greater detail about all the great things we chatted about, adding a little bit of the notes and the data that he went over in case you missed it live. And then linking to his wonderful apps, as well as that performance nutrition app, and I believe it was Whoop app. I'll plug those in the show notes. Leave me a comment, drop me a message, reach out if you need something. We're here to help every step of the way. Thanks guys for tuning in, and we look forward to our next expert interviewee.